The story begins 3 days earlier. Ella had long been suffering from severe vision problems, living in constant discomfort. Determined to fully restore her eyesight, she made the firm decision to undergo surgery. The doctor solemnly informed her husband, David, that the operation had been very successful. However, it would require a full 3 days for recovery. During those 3 days, she would temporarily lose her vision. She could only rely on careful support from those around her to manage daily life. Although Ella felt uneasy deep down, she gradually relaxed at the thought that David would stay by her side. David was a cardiologist. That day, he suddenly received an urgent notice from the hospital. He needed to leave immediately for Macau to attend an important medical conference. Though Ella felt reluctant and saddened, she understood the demands of his profession and did not try to hold him back. Before leaving, David arranged for their housekeeper, Kara, to stay and take care of Ella. This seemingly ordinary and simple farewell quietly became the beginning of Ella's nightmare. Not long after David left, Kara realized her asthma medication was running low. She hurried out to the pharmacy to buy more. At the time, Ella was completely unguarded and didn't think much of it. She simply told Kara to come back quickly and not be gone too long. But once Kara left, she never returned. After an unknown amount of time, Ella's dog suddenly began barking frantically. Moments later, a large-built man suddenly forced his way inside. He introduced himself as Henry. He claimed to be a former classmate of her husband, David. He said he had come to thank David for curing his wife's long-term heart condition. Very quickly, Ella let her guard down. She warmly invited him inside. After learning that Ella was temporarily blind, Henry took the initiative to guide her into the room. Then he politely said that he was a bit dirty and didn't want to stain her clean sofa. Before leaving, he even reminded her not to walk around alone, saying it could be dangerous. After Henry left, Ella lay alone on the couch and gradually fell asleep. Around 7 p.m. Soon after, a torrential rainstorm began, but Kara still had not returned. The windows rattled loudly under the force of the wind. Ella had no choice but to carefully feel her way up. Trying to close them, she fumbled for quite a while but couldn't manage to shut the window. Just as she was at a loss, the doorbell suddenly rang. Ella felt a moment of relief, thinking Kara had come back. But when she opened the door, it was Henry again. After entering, Henry first helped her close the shaking window. Then he walked straight into the bathroom to deal with the rainwater on himself. In the mirror, a strange and twisted smile appeared on his face. It was completely different from the polite man he had seemed to be earlier. Afterward, Ella politely brought out some fruit to entertain him, although a faint sense of unease began to rise in her heart. She was blind and unable to see anything. Unbeknownst to her, Henry had already removed his outer clothing and was only wearing underwear in front of her. Ella noticed nothing unusual. Henry claimed his clothes were soaked. Without hesitation, Ella told him to wash them and change into something clean. What she never expected was that Henry didn't go to the laundry room at all, but instead walked straight into her bedroom. He casually picked out a set of her husband's clothes from the closet and changed into them. Then he even jumped onto the bed without restraint. By now, the heavy rain had gradually stopped. Henry returned to the living room after getting dressed and continued chatting with Ella. He showed no intention of leaving. When the conversation turned to his wife, Henry suddenly lost control of his emotions. The sudden outburst filled Ella with fear. After a moment, Henry gradually calmed down. Feeling uneasy, Ella told him it seemed like the rain had stopped. Henry seemed to understand her hint and turned to leave. Only after hearing the heavy sound of the door closing did Ella finally feel relieved. She then felt her way into the kitchen and poured herself a glass of juice, but at that moment, she suddenly sensed a cold presence standing right behind her. Afterward, Ella hurriedly got dressed and nervously walked out of the bathroom, but just then, Henry suddenly rushed back in again. He appeared flustered and claimed that a thief had broken into the house. He then pretended to struggle with the intruder in the living room, deliberately making loud noises and shouting. The act terrified the confused Ella, leaving her trembling. This staged performance only deepened her confusion and fear. After things gradually quieted down, Henry walked over holding a glass of milk. He claimed it would help calm her nerves and urged her to drink it. Then he pretended to be considerate, saying he would stay downstairs to keep watch and protect her. At this point, Ella's unease grew stronger and stronger. She quickly rushed into the room and locked the door. Then, trembling, she picked up the phone to call for help. But the phone line had already been cut by Henry. By then, the effect of the drug in the milk had begun to set in. She gradually felt dizzy and weak, collapsing onto the bed. When Ella slowly woke up again, it was already the next morning. The door she had locked the night before had somehow been opened, and Henry was sitting casually by her bed, eating ham while staring at her with a cold gaze. Ella was completely stunned. If Henry wasn't a threat, then why had the locked door been opened while she slept? And why was he here again? Ella demanded that Henry call the police immediately. Henry slowly picked up the phone and pretended to make the call. At that moment, Ella finally realized the truth. The phone had never worked at all, and everything had been a deception. Seeing his act fully exposed, Henry revealed his true, twisted nature. It turned out he had been waiting a long time for the chance to harm her. With a sinister smile, he told Ella that her housekeeper Kara had already been abducted and locked in the trunk of a car. Hearing this, Ella panicked instantly. Overwhelmed with fear, she turned and tried to run out of the room to seek help. But the front door had already been securely locked by Henry. Only then did his carefully planned nightmare truly begin. He first crushed a small white mouse under his foot, using the harsh sound and unsettling atmosphere to create fear. Little by little, he broke down Ella's psychological defenses. Then he slowly leaned close to her ear, asking invasive and disturbing questions in a cold tone. In order not to provoke him, Ella could only endure her fear and disgust. Henry's torment did not stop there. He forced Ella to put on a dress he liked and accompany him for lunch. Under pressure, she reluctantly took a sip of wine, but Henry was not satisfied and insisted she eat the steak in front of her. In order to survive until her husband returned, Ella had no choice but to comply. Only then did she realize that her beloved dog had become the meal on the table. Henry coldly warned her not to spit it out, or she would be forced to finish the rest. He stared at her, forcing her to eat bite by bite. After the meal, Ella ran to the bathroom and vomited uncontrollably. That dog had been her loyal companion for many years. The loss of her pet and Henry's cruelty pushed her to the edge of a breakdown, but after that brief collapse, she forced herself to calm down and face the harsh reality. There was no one who could help her now. She could only rely on herself and do everything she could to stay safe. She took deep breaths, gradually steadying herself. Then she stepped forward, pretending to comply as she massaged Henry, searching for a chance to escape. At that moment, Ella realized clearly that the man in front of her would never let her go. She decided to take matters into her own hands and fight for a way out. She deliberately grabbed a bottle from the table and smashed it onto the floor. Then she pretended to have difficulty breathing, claiming her asthma was acting up. She urgently asked Henry to get her asthma medication. She deliberately told him that the medicine was with Kara, because Ella knew very well that Kara's medication had already run out. As expected, Henry did not suspect anything and hurriedly searched through Kara's bag. Ella pretended to use it, then anxiously said there was no medicine left. She urged Henry to go out and buy more immediately, saying it would be too late otherwise. Before leaving, he tightly secured all the windows with wire. Then he locked Ella inside the bedroom to prevent her from escaping. Henry drove away into the distance. Only then did Ella quickly get up and open the bedroom door. Fortunately, when Henry locked the door earlier, she had secretly wedged a piece of clothing into the doorframe, carefully feeling her way forward. Ella made her way into the living room to search for her handbag. She clearly remembered that there was a set of house keys inside, but as she tremblingly took out the keys, her hope shattered instantly. Every single key had been broken and was completely unusable. Just as she was about to give up, she suddenly remembered that before leaving, David had placed an old phone on the couch, so she hurried over, feeling her way along the sofa to find it. When she tremblingly dialed the emergency number, she fell into despair once again. The phone had already run out of battery and shut off. At that moment, Ella collapsed once more. After crying for a while, she suddenly remembered that the phone charger was in the bedroom, so she picked up the old phone from the floor, removed the battery, and stumbled her way toward the stairs, preparing to charge it. But just as she was about to reach the bedroom, she clearly heard the sound of Henry's car returning outside. Seeing Ella curled up on the ground in pain, struggling to breathe, Henry assumed her asthma attack had become severe. Panicking, he hurriedly handed her the medicine he had brought back. Seeing her in such distress, he didn't think much further. He stepped forward, helped her to the bed, and let her lie down to rest. Once Henry turned and left, closing the bedroom door behind him, Ella endured the pain and took out the battery she had hidden. Then she carefully placed it onto the charger. After everything she had gone through that day, Ella lay exhausted on the bed and quickly fell into a deep sleep. Until the middle of the night, a loud thunderclap jolted her awake. Unbeknownst to her, Henry had already quietly entered her room. He stared fixedly at the terrified Ella. It turned out he had already discovered that the person with asthma was Kara. The name written clearly on the medical record was Kara's. Henry's wife had once been David's patient. As her attending doctor, David had given her special attention, but no one had ever imagined that behind the care was something so dark and disturbing. Taking advantage of his position as a doctor, David had crossed a line with Henry's wife when she was unable to resist. She had always been timid and fragile. After what happened, she was too afraid to tell anyone. Day after day, year after year, the weight of that pain crushed her completely. In the end, she chose to end her life in despair. It was only after her passing that Henry discovered the truth through her diary. From that moment on, he swore to take revenge on David. He waited patiently for the perfect moment. He planned to first destroy what David cared about most, then wait for David to return and confront him face to face. Hearing all of this, Ella felt as if she had been struck by lightning. She could not believe that the man she loved was capable of something like this. The shock and pain drained all her strength. Henry did not act immediately. He intended to prolong her suffering. After saying all this, he turned and left the bedroom. Not long after, footsteps could be heard outside once again. But the person who entered this time was not Henry. Ella swung wildly in panic, but didn't hit anything. Her frantic reaction confused the intruder. Once he realized Ella couldn't see at all, a sinister smile appeared on his face. In the next moment, Ella was tightly bound to the bed. No matter how she explained or pleaded, he refused to believe her. The intruder began rummaging through the house, searching for valuables. After a while, feeling tired, he sat down to smoke. At that moment, a dark figure silently appeared behind him. This intruder was not only greedy, but also driven by impulse. He failed to notice that Henry had quietly taken a seat behind him. Just then, the doorbell suddenly rang. Henry slowly walked over and opened the door. Standing outside was Kara's police officer boyfriend. He had planned to take Kara to a movie earlier, but after waiting for a long time with no sign of her, he came to check on her. Henry calmly claimed that Kara had gone out earlier and had not returned. After a brief conversation, the officer turned and left to look for her. At that moment, Ella managed to crawl downstairs with great difficulty. Using the plastic cutter from a wrap dispenser, She had managed to cut the rope around her wrists. Then she quietly made her way out through the back of the house. Fortunately, her vision had begun to slowly recover. Barefoot, she ran toward the distant light with all her strength. After running for what felt like forever, she suddenly saw a car approaching. Ella hurried forward, waving desperately for help. After getting into the car, she begged the driver to take her away. Meanwhile, the police officer searching for Kara suddenly remembered something. A few days earlier, Kara had asked him to develop some photos. He quickly took them out and looked at them. Only then did he realize that the man he had seen at Ella's house was not David. With that realization, he immediately turned his car around. He rushed back to Ella's house and quickly drew his gun. After checking downstairs and finding no one, he carefully made his way upstairs. Eventually, he found Ella trapped in the bathroom. At this point, her vision had begun to return. Though still blurry, Henry realized he was running out of time. He prepared to make his move. Meanwhile, Ella pretended to cooperate, secretly waiting for a chance to grab the gun that had fallen onto the sofa. Just then, David suddenly returned from Macau. Henry deliberately provoked him with taunting words. Enraged, David shoved Henry aside. After kicking him several times, he turned and angrily demanded why Ella had betrayed him. Under pressure and confrontation, David finally broke down. He admitted everything that had happened in the past. In the next moment, Henry's fists came crashing down. He vented years of anger and resentment. At that moment, Ella fully realized the truth about her husband. She chose not to help David. Instead, she quietly walked to the door and shut off the main power. She knew that if Henry found her again, he would not spare her. In complete darkness, Ella had already adapted to the environment. She quickly grabbed several items, preparing to fight back. The moment the lights came back on, Ella froze. Her vision had fully returned. She could now see everything clearly, but she pretended she was still blind. Then she quickly turned and ran into the kitchen. She grabbed several cans of beer from the cabinet and stuffed them into the microwave. Then she immediately turned it on. After that, she rushed into another room and tightly shut the door. As the temperature inside the microwave rapidly rose, a powerful explosion knocked Henry unconscious. Relieved, Ella slowly walked past him. After enduring these terrifying 72 hours, Ella had completely changed. She was no longer the helpless woman she once was, nor was she afraid of Henry anymore. She raised the weapon in her hand and struck him down, again and again, until he no longer moved. She hated Henry for everything he had done to her, for the pain he had caused, for the lives that had been lost. But at the same time, she couldn't help but feel a trace of sympathy for the tragedy that had shaped him, for the hatred that had consumed him. She hated her husband even more for his betrayal. If not for what he had done, none of this would have ever happened. Through this nightmare, Ella was transformed from a helpless victim into someone strong enough to fight back. She knew this nightmare would haunt her forever, but she also knew she had to keep moving forward and begin a new life.